Hi everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's tutorial is going to be this glow-in-the-dark jack-o'-lantern tumbler. I have received a lot of requests on glow-in-the-dark tumblers, especially for Halloween. So I wanted to start out with this easy beginner tumbler that I created. Now, if you do not want any glitter for the face, the Vinyl People also has some glow-in-the-dark vinyl that I'll show you throughout the video, and that also glows beautifully. Here is the tumbler with the light on. You can see this is a cute 25-ounce barrel tumbler to make that pumpkin effect, and I did a tight drip at the top to represent the stem. Like always, all of my materials will be listed in my description below, so be sure to check that out along with some help videos down below. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this tumbler. I'm starting out with a 25-ounce barrel tumbler from Maker Flow Crafts. I have sanded this tumbler down and I have also wiped it down with 91% alcohol. My first step is going to be applying my decal, which is going to be my pumpkin face. This is permanent vinyl, but I am going to treat this as a template. So you can make this color any color you like. I just have the green on hand, so that's why I chose the green. I'm going to be placing down my craft towel, and then I'm going to be placing down my decal on my tumbler. I'm going to be pressing down that vinyl on the stainless steel, making sure that it is straight. And then once I've pressed it all down, I'm going to peel up that transfer tape. Now that I have my decal on my tumbler, I'm going to press down any areas that might be bubbled at the end. I don't want any spray paint going underneath this vinyl. If you notice, I do have a tiny little bubble right here. Don't worry about that. Like I said, this is going to be only a template, and you are going to be removing this decal soon. Even though I've already sanded this tumbler and wiped it down with 91% alcohol, I'm still going to wipe it down with 91% alcohol again, since I've been touching all over it. So I'm going to wipe it down very well with the alcohol, and once I finish wiping it down, I'm going to be taking my tumbler outside and spray painting it orange. The orange spray paint I'm going to be using is from Krylon, and it is pumpkin orange. This is the only orange color I have, and it is actually a gloss. I would prefer satin or matte, but I'm working with what I have on hand. So I'm going to go outside, spray my tumbler, let it dry for about 15-20 minutes, and I'll return with the next step. My tumbler is completely dried with the spray paint. I'm now going to go in and remove my vinyl. Now this is an optional step. If you would like to keep the vinyl on, then you can, or you can remove it like I'm doing. I'm going to take my weeding tool and kind of poke a hole in part of the vinyl without peeling up that spray paint, and then trying to remove it like so. Make sure you are removing the vinyl very slowly. You don't want to peel that paint. It is still fairly fresh on the tumbler. And now you have your face outlined on your tumbler. For my next step of my tumbler, I am going to be adding these burnt orange lines. This is going to kind of resemble those little divots inside of pumpkins. So them being darker, it's going to look like that it's kind of sunk in. So it kind of gives it an illusion. Hopefully it will. So that's why I chose the darker orange. The rectangle sizes that I'm going to be using are going to be 11.5 by 0.20. Now the length of this tumbler is 8 inches, so I should have done 8 by 0.20, but I already had them pre-cut from another tumbler, so I just kept it like that. Placing my tumbler on the craft towel, I'm just going to be adding a line on the tumbler like so. I'm just trying to make sure that it does stay, or it does get placed as straight as I can. This is a curved tumbler, so don't overthink placing your lines exactly straight. And then I just cut the bottom just for the bottom to kind of go in. And then I'm going to also cut the top some. So I have one line down. I'm going to be doing my next line, and I'm just going to place it on the other side the same way as I did that other one. And I do have two size cuts of lines. So I have the 0.20, and then I have a little bit thinner ones, which is the 0.10. 0.15. So I might just add both of the lines on here just to see how it will look with two sizes of the line. Here's how it looks so far. Remember that we are placing this vinyl on spray paint. So once you basically stick down that line or that vinyl, it is stuck where it is. I always try to do my tumblers using less coats of epoxy as I can. So that's why I'm doing it this way and not doing epoxy. So I'm going to be adding another line on the tumbler, and I don't want them symmetrical, so I don't want them all exactly like 6 inches apart. I want it to be kind of random on the tumbler, just like it would other pumpkins. So I'm just going to just place it like so, and then I'll probably add a thin one between those two lines. I will say, if I have some basketball fans that are viewing, if you are trying to make a basketball, this tumbler also looks like that, so this might be a cute idea. I'm going to be placing some small lines on the front. So I'm placing that over that jack-o'-lantern or the stencil, and I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and cut into that area where the face is, just so I can cut around it. And then I'm going to lift it up with my X-Acto knife once I cut it. And then I'm also going to do that same thing for the mouth area. And pressing down on that vinyl, there's a little crease where that spray paint is, so it's easy for you to just kind of trace that X-Acto knife and remove that vinyl. I have placed and cut all of the vinyl around my tumbler. I have like it not so perfect around the back side. This is completely up to you. If you want yours symmetrical, then do yours symmetrical or do yours randomly. This is your tumbler, whatever makes your little Halloween heart happy. My next step to this tumbler is going to be creating this like a rustic or a distressed look. In retrospect, I should have maybe left my vinyl on my face on, but it's okay because I'm going to work around it. So if you did want to leave your vinyl on, then you can do that and you can peel it off after this step. For the distressed look, I will be using Tim Holtz alcohol ink, rust, caramel, and sepia. I know there's also like teak wood, espresso, butterscotch. Use any brown that you have on hand to create this look. Don't go out and buy more browns or more specific browns. Any type or any shades of browns will work for this. And then I have this Pearl Deep Brown from Arteza. So this is kind of like a metallic, so I'm going to play around with this. I'm going to see how it might look on the tumbler. What I typically do is I have my tumbler down and then I have a paper plate, and I kind of just place all of these inks on a paper plate. I take some old paint brushes that I've already used. The more worn out they are, the better for me personally, and I sometimes label them like this is just for my browns, this is for my grays and blacks, and this is for more like yellows and butterscotches. I have my alcohol ink colors on this paper plate just to see the different shades they offer. So I really like this rustic one. It's kind of like a burnt red brown. So I think I'm going to start with the rust. I'm going to be taking my brush and then adding some on that brush. Now I will say, as you see, I am using these gloves, so make sure you are using gloves and you are wearing your apron, because you do not want these to stain your hand. If you do get alcohol ink on you, you can always use 91% alcohol to remove it from your skin. So as you can see, I'm just going to make these simple brush strokes. This is very similar to creating a wood grain tumbler. I'm just going to pretend that face isn't even there and just continue to go back and forth. It's not really going to affect too much if I do get alcohol ink on the face area. So don't worry if you did yours like mine and you've already maybe peeled up that vinyl. I'm going to add some sepia, and personally, I wanted to use my teak wood on this, but I ran out of my teak wood. It is my favorite shade of brown. I just like it. It goes great with a lot of projects that I do. But unfortunately, I'm out. So I'm compromising and I'm going to use the sepia. So I'm trying to make it one big brush stroke like you see. So even if you do mess up a little bit and you make the brush strokes a little bit too heavy, Don't worry about that. I'm trying to make this look very distressed and very, very worn. And I want kind of like these big brush strokes here. So the way I got that was I took one of my colors, I took the sepia, and I just placed it on a paper plate, and then I dabbed it on the brush, and then I pressed the brush down very hard on the tumbler. You can see it creates that deeper distressed look. And if you haven't noticed, I do have my paper plate on my craft towel because these do seep through, and especially using these cheap paper plates, it will mess up my craft table more than what it's already messed up. I'm going to hit the bottom a couple times and just kind of create some brush strokes on there. Okay, I'm not going to get carried away with this, I promise, but I'm just going to add just a little bit more on the face area. So you can see I'm just patting some as well and just making that distressed look. And you can still see those pumpkin lines added on the tumbler. They don't pop as much as they used to, but it still gives that effect of a pumpkin. So those are still cute. If you think that they are pointless, then you don't have to add those. You can just add the distressed look. But like I said, I like those little lines just to kind of tie in the whole pumpkin feel. I'm going to put some of this Pearl Deep Brown on the tumbler as well. So I have just a little bit on my plate, and then I'm just going to blot off some excess. So you can see there's only a little bit on this brush, and I'm going to lightly just brush that on. It's going to give it a nice, like, I wouldn't say glow, but a nice little shimmer to the tumbler. And that's what I kind of want. I know that this is kind of like a Halloween scary tumbler, but you know, I always like me some sparkle, so I just want a little bit of shimmer on the tumbler before I put in that glow-in-the-dark glitter on the eyes and the mouth area. Okay, I am super happy how this is turning out so far. This is coming together just perfectly. I am absolutely loving this. I'm going to put away all of my supplies and then we'll return with that next step. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I do reuse these cheap brushes. They dry instantly and I never wash them. Whenever they get really bad, not even as bad as this, but some of them, sometimes it gets even worse than this, I just buy a new set from either Lowe's or the Dollar Tree. One of the best parts about this tumbler is that this is already dried. I love that alcohol inks take such a little amount of time to dry, and I put such a little amount of that acrylic paint on here that it is already dry to the touch. The next step is going to be going in with 91% alcohol and removing as much as I can from the face area. Do not be too particular with this, and this part you can probably skip if you like, but just go ahead and try to remove all those little brush strokes as much as you can. The only reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to be using like a light green or yellow for the face, and I don't want those browns to peek through. I am using just a cut up paper towel for this part, and I'm not even being exact with it. I'm just cleaning most of the face up. So I'm going to finish this and then we'll move on with that next step. I'm not going to lie, I kind of like this look. I don't want to ruin it with that glitter, but I also want to use that glow in the dark glitter. So let's go ahead and add the glitter to the tumbler. I'm going to be mixing some acrylic paint and Mod Podge together to create a color and a sticky base. Once I have the acrylic paint and Mod Podge mixed together, I'm going to be taking a paintbrush, and it is a 3/8 paintbrush, and it is an edged one. I'm going to be taking that and just painting the inside of that eyeball, or I should say eye, because they don't have eyeballs, but I'm going to be painting that the silver part of the face. So with that, whenever I put in that glitter, it's going to stick only to the areas where I have that Mod Podge. Once I have the paint on part of the face, I'm going to go in with that glow-in-the-dark glitter, which is Glow Up from Glitter Heart Co. And I'm going to be sprinkling that on that eye area. Make sure you have some catch paper down so it can catch that excess glitter. And then as it is still wet, I'm going to use my gloved hand And I'm going to be pressing down that glitter onto that area because this glitter, it isn't fine, but it's not really chunky. So it's somewhere in between. I know that's a little confusing, but that's just the size of it. So I'm going to be doing this one at a time. So one part of the face at a time with that glitter. And I chose to use yellow as a background because I know whenever you add a candle to a jack-o'-lantern, it usually glows yellow. And this glow up is green, so if I mix the yellow with the green, I feel like it would give it more realistic look than just having the green background. So I'm going to fast forward through this part and then I'll catch with y'all soon. All of my glitter is placed on my tumbler. My next step is going to be going outside and spraying my tumbler with 2 to 3 generous coats of Krylon crystal clear acrylic coating. Once I have sprayed this, I'm going to let my tumbler air dry for about 20 to 30 minutes. So I'll see y'all soon. Welcome back, everybody. I am here with my tumbler. The acrylic coating has dried on the tumbler. So if you do have your glitter on your tumbler, if you touch that tumbler, there should be little to no glitter coming off. For my next step, I'm going to be applying my epoxy to my tumbler. I have mixed about 30 milliliters of epoxy. That's 15 milliliters part A and 15 milliliters part B, totaling 30 milliliters of epoxy. I'm going to be applying my epoxy all over my tumbler like I would any other tumbler. I did choose a lot of epoxy for this tumbler only because that glitter is a more chunky glitter and I wanted it to really seal in. And if you notice, some of that glitter is actually coming off, and I have never had that happen to any other glitter when I used my acrylic coating. So I'm just going to work around that. Maybe if you seal it in with some Mod Podge, maybe that would be more effective. So I'm just going to be epoxying the pumpkin part before I do the face part. So I'm just getting the little bits of the glitter off of the pumpkin area that shouldn't be on the pumpkin, and then adding the epoxy right around that face part. Now for the face, I'm just going to add that epoxy on the face and kind of blot it on there and let it just kind of drip. If anything, thankfully, this is a more thick glitter, so if it does get on areas that it shouldn't be, then it can always just be picked off. So it was very easy picking this glitter off, so that's always a good thing. You can see I'm just kind of tapping it on there just so I don't kind of spread around that glitter. Once I'm finished applying my glitter to my tumbler, I'm going to allow my tumbler to spin on the cup turner for about 4 hours. After 4 hours, I'm going to turn off my cup turner and allow my tumbler to air dry or air cure for another 20 hours with my cup turner turned off. I do remove my cup from the turner and I place it on its drying rack upside down. Okay, it looks like I have all of the epoxy on my tumbler. I'm going to let this spin, air dry, and I'll see y'all in about 24 hours. Welcome back, everybody. My epoxy is dried on my tumbler, and you can see that there's some spots that are not exactly smooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sanding block, a 220 grit sanding block, and sand around this tumbler. Now keep in mind that this, the mouth and the face area is not smooth, so try not to sand away that glitter if you are going to be sanding your tumbler. I'm just going to get little pieces around here that may have not have laid flat. Once I'm finished sanding down my tumbler, I'm going to take my 91% alcohol and wipe down the tumbler again. This is just going to get rid of any excess oils that might have transferred from your tumbler while sanding and any dust or powder that may have transferred as well. I'm going to be creating my top drip with my Nice and Thick from Counterculture. You have seen me use this in my other videos. I really do like this product only because it thickens up the epoxy without having to wait that 45 minutes to an hour time. I have my epoxy mixed here. I mix a total of 10 milliliters of epoxy. That's 5 milliliters part A and 5 milliliters part B, totaling 10 milliliters of epoxy. So what I'm doing is I just take my big wooden stick and I just put kind of a scoop of the powder into the epoxy, and then I mix the epoxy. Now I will say I'll probably use about 2 scoops for this small amount of epoxy, but do keep in mind that this stuff does creep up on you quickly, meaning that you'll think that it's not getting hard, and all of a sudden your epoxy gets extremely hard. So make sure that you do have patience while mixing this. If you don't have this product, that is completely okay. Another alternative is to mix your epoxy and let your epoxy sit out and let it start air drying or air curing. So it should take about 45 minutes to maybe an hour depending on your room's temperature or climate, and then it will start getting kind of tacky or sticky, and that way you can start your drip with that. I'm going to be adding some green and a little bit of brown to my epoxy. I am using apple barrel acrylic paint. It doesn't matter what finish you use. I'm using the new shamrock and then the melted chocolate. I didn't want too much of a green on the top. I wanted kind of a darker green, and I didn't have that color, so I'm going to try to make kind of a darker green without kind of making it too brown. So I'm going to add that acrylic paint in there after I add that first scoop of the nice and thick, only because the acrylic paint also helps thicken that epoxy. So then it will gauge how much more powder I need to add to the epoxy. You can see that it is a nice dark green, and I'm going to be adding a little bit more of the nice and thick and stirring the epoxy to make it one consistency. My epoxy is now starting to harden up, so what I like to do is I like to basically turn my cup upside down of epoxy, and it is not dripping out, and that's what I want to see. So what I do is I take my tumbler, I take my epoxy on my tumbler, and I just smear that epoxy right on the top of the tumbler. And all I do is I just basically place it on the rim, and then I will just let it slowly fall down. So I don't create kind of a drip right now. What I do is I'm just coating that rim of the tumbler, and I always try to start in the back because I've learned that if it does drip a little far on the back, then that would be fine. I'd rather it drip too much on the back than drip too much on the front where the face is. So usually I'll kind of test it on the tumbler, I'll put it on the back, and then if it does start dripping more, then I'll add more of the powder to it, or if you don't have the powder, you just let it sit and air dry a little more. So it's all up to you. So just place that right here and then all around that edge. And I'm not worrying about getting the drip inside of the tumbler. I'm not worrying about getting that drip or epoxy on the top, because if you have seen one of my videos where I clean up the edge, the rim and the inside of the tumbler, I take an X-Acto knife and I X-Acto knife that off, and then I clean up that inside. So don't overthink that area too much. So I am completely finished with adding my epoxy to the top of my tumbler. Like I told y'all, I didn't want a big drip effect. I just wanted kind of the top to just pop a little bit, just to give kind of some color to this tumbler. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to allow my tumbler to sit right side up like so. If it does happen to drip more than what I want, then I'll just put it on my drying rack and tip it back upside down. So I do not like to leave this on my turner, because this stuff is going to drip exactly where gravity allows it to drip. So it's gonna start dripping down. So you have to keep this either right side up or upside down. And then I'm going to let it air dry or air cure for a total of probably about 6 hours, because after 6 hours, it doesn't have to be completely cured. Then we can go on and do our final coat of epoxy. So I'll see y'all soon. Welcome back, everybody. My drip is completely dry. I let it sit for about 7 to 8 hours. You can see that it moved very little. That is what I wanted. I wanted to represent kind of that stem area. I didn't want a long drip. So the next part, I will go ahead and wipe it down with 91% alcohol. I like to do this before another coat of epoxy, just in case I've transferred any lotions or oils or anything like that that may cause my epoxy to repel. My next step will be adding my epoxy to my tumbler. I am mixing a total of 30 milliliters of epoxy. That's 15 milliliters part A and 15 milliliters part B, totaling 30 milliliters of epoxy. I may use a little less than 30 milliliters. I want to make sure that I cover up his face area because it is kind of bumpy. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but I just want to make sure this face area and the tumbler is one smooth tumbler. I'll be mixing my epoxy off screen and I'll see y'all in a little bit. I have my epoxy mixed in my cup and now I'm going to be applying my epoxy to my tumbler. I am going to be applying my epoxy over the already poured drip, the green part up top. I just want to go ahead and seal that in. You do not have to do that, so if you want, you can add your drip after you've already epoxied your entire tumbler. It is completely up to you. Once I'm finished applying my epoxy to my tumbler, I'm going to let my tumbler spin on the cup turner for about 4 to 6 hours. After 4 to 6 hours, I'm going to then turn off my cup turner, let my tumbler air dry or air cure for another 18 to 20 hours. I want a full drying time of 24 hours to make sure my epoxy is completely cured or air dried. And my epoxy's been applied to my tumbler. I'll let this spin, let it air dry, and I'll see y'all soon. Welcome back, everybody. My epoxy is completely cured on the tumbler and my tumbler is completely finished. The only thing I have to do next is clean up that rim and clean the inside of my tumbler. If you do need help with that, I will be posting a link in my description below for that help tutorial. Y'all know what the moment of truth is. Turn off the light to see if this tumbler glows. And here is the tumbler with the lights off. You can see how much this tumbler glows. This is super, super cute. It looks like an actual pumpkin. Like I mentioned earlier, I did want to let y'all know that if you do not want to add the glitter to the face, you can do this by simply adding the vinyl to the tumbler. The vinyl people, they do have glow-in-the-dark vinyl, and unfortunately, you can't see it on camera, but it is actually glowing. So let me try to take it out of the package, and maybe you'll be able to get a better look at it. I removed it from the package and you can see that glow. I did have to put it underneath my light for about 30 seconds for this vinyl to glow. I will say both of these glow-in-the-dark materials, they work well whenever you let them sit in the sunlight or even a UV lamp. So I noticed when I put this tumbler outside and I brought it back in, this tumbler grew so much. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed creating it for y'all. If you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see y'all next time.